I chose the name jar for my story that I would do my social justice book talk on. This story was written and illustrated by Young Suk Choi, or in Korean, her name would be Choi Young Suk. The publisher for this book was Knopf Books for Young Readers and Dragonfly Books. It was also published by many other companies, so this was the primary publishing company for when it first came out. The genre is realistic fiction, and the grade level is K through 2, Lexile level of AD 590L. There are 40 pages of this book, and the author's background is as stated. Young Suk Choi was born in South Korea and immigrated to the United States upon reaching adulthood to pursue an art career. She took her gift of drawing that she had honed since the age of 4 and began to write and illustrate books for young children. She introduced them to the world of both Korean folk tales of her own imagination and realistic stories based on herself and the people she knows that continue to broaden the worldview of the children who read them. Her stories, especially The Name Jar, teach children of cultural identity, differences, and assimilation. And there is a citation under this just to show where I got the information for her background. A summary of the name jar is that the name jar is a story about a young girl named Eunye, which means grace in Korean. The story follows her on her journey as she moves to the United States with her family and begins a life at a new school. Upon arriving at the school, she struggles to introduce herself with her name to her new classmates as they struggle with the pronunciation. With this newfound challenge, she begins to consider taking up an English name. As the days go by, her new classmates even create a jar filled with English names that she could choose, written on strips of paper, which she reads aloud in class each day. The students are not making fun of her, they just wanted to genuinely help her because they felt bad that she didn't have a name since she hadn't fully introduced her Korean name to them yet. As Ine grapples with the decision to change her name, a letter arrives from her grandmother in Korea. Her grandmother's letter is filled with hopes for her successful future in her new country and affirmations for her name. She calls her Mai Eunye, which changes Eunye's perspective on her name. She speaks with one of the new friends from her class, Joey, and he also takes great interest in her true name. In the conclusion, Eunye finally formally introduces herself to the class under her name, Eunye, and all of her fellow classmates make a true effort to learn her name and get to know more about her. The class also is able to begin a discussion on their names and each name's meaning as well. Eunye in this summary is spelled two different ways because in one way the book writes it, I think it actually says Unhei, not Eunhei, and I spell it Eunhye because that's easier to pronounce for English readers, at least in my opinion. This is a very sweet book that addresses social issues in a way that can be more easily understood by young readers. It addresses the issues of assimilation and differences in a manner that students can learn and base their interactions with other people upon to become more socially conscious. Including true Korean words in the illustrations has also given another element of introduction of the Korean culture to students, which is very appreciated. Overall, this book is a high quality book as it is able to take on the K through 12 grade level and introduce a social justice topic such as assimilation, because Eunye really struggles with deciding if she should really just take on the American culture and abandon part of her Korean culture with her name. And even her mother mentions something slight to the illusion of assimilation, telling her that she should work very hard and study very hard in America and just try to do her best in there. And there's some other details that she says, but her mother also still tells her that you are different and that is a good thing. And this will help other students understand that just because they're different doesn't mean it's a bad thing. In the classroom, I would probably use this book in a lesson that would be based on making connections from the story to my students and my personal life, as well as cultures. I will base the lesson on a second grade standard that states to describe how characters in a story respond to major events and challenges. We would begin the class with a reading of the name jar on the carpet. I would have my students ask questions and make inferences on the story before it is read, monitor their understanding based on their questions and inferences while it is read, and check their understanding of the story after it is read. We would then go into a group discussion about the story and our own connections that we can make to it, whether it be with our names and meanings, our cultures, immigration, because that topic was very important in this story, etc. For the individual work part of this lesson, I would have my students complete their own name jars. This would include their name, its meaning. Some research may be required on my part for this, or something special about it if they don't have a name that has a usual meaning, because some names are just something that your parents felt was a nice name, but it may have no regular meaning. They may have just spelled it out on the spot. And then they would end it, if time allowed, with a short paragraph about the connections that they can make with Inye's actions and themselves, whether that be with her considerations about her name and culture, or anything else with the topic of immigration. And my time is slowly running out, so I will end with this. Overall, this was a really great story, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to go over it in this.